Happy Friday and welcome to LTC. We are delighted to have you join us for the final debate of school committee. My name is Bora Chiemruom, the Executive Director of LTC. The debate are being hosted by LTC, Lowell Votes, the Sun, and Khmer Post. During this session, we will hear from District 2, 3, and 4. To my left, Susie Chhoun, Hilary Clark, Eileen DelRossi, and the Descoteaux, and Mr. Dominik Lay. Unfortunately, Mr. Chet Kim is not here and couldn't join us today. So some rules, each candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions from our esteemed panelists, our questioners. Mr. Sidney Liang, who is the new senior director of Meta Health Clinic. Congratulations, Sidney. He's also a longtime producer of LTC. And to my left, Ivy Nugugi, I hope I'm saying that right. She is from the Center on Hope and Healing. You will all have 5 questions, and let's get started with candidates' statement. 2 minutes each. And why don't we start with you, Susie?
Thank you so much, Bora and our panelists and our view from LTC and our host for hosting tonight's event. My name is Susie Chhoun, running for School Committee District 3 that consists of the Belvedere and South Lowell. And the 2 words that describe me as a person is strength and resiliency. And the reason why I've described myself as strength and has strength and resiliency is that 2 people come in mind is that my mom and my sister. Coming to America in 1985 was difficult for someone like myself who's a refugee, and arriving to Texas was a very life-changing experience for myself as a young child. And I was very lucky enough to be able to reside myself in Lowell, Massachusetts in 1989. And the experiences that I've had both in Houston, Texas, and in Lowell, Massachusetts, actually helped me better as a community leader and as an educator. And being someone who come to America knowing not a word of English and having to learn to assimilate to the American culture and also and retain my own culture as well is the reason why I decided to run for office, because I know exactly firsthand how it feels to grow up in a country which you don't know the language, and Lowell has given me an opportunity to better myself, and I am an alumni of Lowell Public School, and both my girls are as well. And that now that my 2 children are now adults, it's my turn to pay it forward to our city and to especially city of Lowell and our students. And being an educator for over 20 years, I've seen firsthand how education made a major role as to myself as a person, and it's also my turn to also give the opportunity to our younger generation to look up to, and especially having engagement with families and having our parents empower our families to become more engaging in our children's education, especially having them being collaborative with our teachers and families. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Next, we have Hilary Clark for District 2.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Hilary Clark. I'm running for re-election to the Lowell Public School Committee in District 2, which is downtown and Centerville. I'm a parent of a Lowell Public Middle School student, and I live downtown with my family. I'm a human resources professional, and I have strong communication and collaboration skills. I'm passionate about public education, and I believe all Lowell students deserve a great educational opportunity. I value equity, diversity, inclusivity, family engagement, and fiscal responsibility. I believe I have shown in this current term that my focus is on our students, and if given an opportunity, I would like to continue that work. So I think I would just like to say that I would appreciate one of your votes on November 2nd, and I thank you for this opportunity tonight. Thank you, LTC.
Thank you. Next, we have Eileen DelRossi from District 2, for District 2 as well.
Hi, my name is Eileen DelRossi. I was born and raised in Lowell. I'm from the Centerville district. I'm running in District 2 and 4, I believe, Centerville in the downtown area. I attended Lowell Public Schools and had some of the most amazing teachers I was exposed to, and really got to see how different teachers really are able to reach you. My whole family is from Lowell. They all were, I don't want to say products, but all went to Lowell Public Schools, my brothers and sisters. All had great experiences also. I currently am a teacher in Lowell. I am also a parent of a student in Lowell. I have been a teacher for 17 years, and in my 17 years, I have seen some incredible models of teachers who have made me want to better myself, to better our students. Every student I've come across, I've thought, what if I was that student's parent? And how would I want a teacher to teach them? And in turn, I have been so blessed with the service providers and teachers that my son has had in his schooling. And throughout the process, I think there are so many things that I see as an educator that need some improvement in terms of really just seeing where our kids are socially and emotionally after being shut down for COVID for 18 months. Where they are academically, I think we really need to see where they are. We need to do frequent check-ins and check their emotional state, because if their emotional state's not okay, then it's really hard to teach them. I'd also like to see that buildings are maintained in Lowell too, because there are a lot of issues with different buildings, and there seems to be not a lot of accountability, which if our buildings aren't in the best condition, then how can our students learn? And I'd like to see professional development for our staff in Lowell that's practical, that really help us to reach our student population and where our students are in the city of Lowell. Because from what I see, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're up next, Andy. Andy Descoteaux for District 3.
Hi, I'm Andy Descoteaux, and I'm running for my 4th term on the Lowell School Committee from District 3, Belvedere in South Lowell. On November 2nd, you'll be voting for candidates in our new voting system. I'm looking for your vote from District 3 so I can continue to look out for our children in the Lowell Public Schools. The profound and devastating effects that the COVID pandemic has wrought on all our students, teachers, and staff have created an absolute need to stay focused on trying to retrieve as much as we can while we are currently in an in-person learning environment. As a retired music teacher of 35 years, I have been and will continue to be the watchdog on this subject. I know what is necessary for our teachers and staff to have at their disposal so that our children might, and I said might, recover from the losses of the past 15 months. We need to put teachers, paraprofessionals, tutors, and social workers in front of our students so that we can assure our parents that we are trying to do all that we can to recapture as much education as possible. Much has been done in many of our school buildings over these last 18 months to bring many of our buildings up to standard that needs to be achieved in order that all of our buildings are safe and healthy for everyone. Anything less is unacceptable. On a personal note, as you may well know, the 1922 building at Lowell High sustained severe water damage in June. The basement was literally my home for 18 years, and it was very, very sad to see the damage that was incurred primarily to the band and chorus rooms. I am glad to say that the basement, through no small miracle, has been refurbished so that students were welcomed to classrooms that are located in the basement on the first day of school. The band and chorus rooms have been opened as of October 4th. I want to thank Suffolk Construction for doing an incredible job over the summer. My name is Andy Descoteaux, and I respectfully ask the School District 3 voters for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Next up, we have Dominik Lay for District 4.
I'd like to tell you that I am a product of the generation before me who had compassion to help people, and I will use that experience to help others. And to the people of the Acres and the Lower Highlands, I want to tell you that in my hands is a ballot, and I'm here today to ask you to use this ballot to vote for Dominik Lay for school committee, so that I can return to the school committee for one more time, for another term, in order to improve the education for our children. I was first elected to the school committee in 2017, and as a school committee, I look for opportunity opportunity to help our children, and every student should have equal chance of success. Our students are multicultural, multilingual. They have the basic needs. I took action to make available on those needs. I made motions to provide the following 4 programs. One, to provide adequate translation services, such as Khmer, Spanish, Swahili, and so on, to help families engage in schools. 2, increase number of parents liaisons. 3, increase the staff diversity and provide the technical education for Lowell High School students.
Sorry, Dominik, your time is up. Candidates, I just wanted to remind you that you will have 2 minutes to answer the question. You are allowed to respond to statement made by other candidates before you, but we do ask you to keep it brief. So with that said, the first question is from Sydney, and that's to Susie Chhoun, and the questions is from our panel.
Thank you. Ms. Susie Chhoun, this is a 2-part question. Are you vaccinated, and how would you assess the city's response to COVID-19?
Thank you. That's a very nice question. Thank you very much. I am fully vaccinated. The reason why I decided to be fully vaccinated because of my experience that I'm working in a school setting, and also because I have an elderly mom that I need to be very mindful of. And not just that, what I see that the city has been doing so far is that they're doing a really good job in terms of getting our information out and where are the places, the locations where our families and our communities can go to get fully vaccinated. And not just that, and it's also in languages where that's very helpful to our families who may not be able to read English, but they can also speak other languages. So the city has been handling it very, I say tremendously, they raised a lot of awareness. And the one thing that, speaking from an education perspective, is that a lot of our children right now, I don't know if the city of Lowell has that provided for our families, but the one thing that I see in the school is that a lot of our kids are affected by post-COVID, where coming back to school, being over a year and a half that they've been in remote learning, and also coming back from a social distance setting from last year, is that our kids are still adjusting to some kind of emotional and setback because of COVID. But that's the only thing that I don't know if the city have readily available for our families and students. But again, I feel like the city are doing a really good job of raising awareness and educating our families about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The same question, Hilary.
Thank you. Yes, I am fully vaccinated, as is my family. And I believe that the city of Lowell has done a good job of, as Susie was mentioning, informing our community members about the risks, and also keeping us safe by requiring a mask mandate in all of our city buildings, which include our schools. This is one of many measures that we are taking to ensure the safety of our students and staff. And it's an important one, but it is not a standalone. And I think the other pieces that are coming into play within our school environments, we have a great testing program this year, a little different model than last year, where students, if they were exposed to COVID, they would then be required to quarantine at home. We have a model this year that our families can sign their students up for testing, and it's actually a test to stay in school. So if someone is exposed to COVID, a close contact, they actually are tested with their family's permission. They're tested daily for 5 days in order to stay in the classroom, and as long as they remain negative, they are allowed to continue at school. And actually, I just read an article today that showed Massachusetts as a national model, because many of our other states in the country have students that have been missing a significant amount of school based on quarantine requirements for close contacts. Lowell has not had this the same experience, and I believe that we are really doing right by our families and our students by keeping people safe, keeping them in school, and that's what we want to continue to do. So I think we are doing the best that we can, and as we get new information and we can do more, we will do more. But right now, that's where it stands. The mask is a DESE requirement, in addition to Lowell, the city of Lowell coming out and requiring masks in their school buildings. The state, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, did come out shortly thereafter to say that was going to be a requirement for our schools as well. So thank you.
Eileen, your question?
Hi, I am vaccinated. Oh, do I have a different question?
No,
Oh,
same question. Yes.
I am vaccinated, and I also did have COVID, so I feel pretty confident in my ability to work. And everyone within the city, keeping the mask protocols and the social distancing. I guess I do have questions in terms of the city of, is it still 6 feet apart? Is it still 3 feet apart? There are some things that are not clear to me. I think within the city and within the school district, not that I'm concerned about it or I'm afraid of it. I just think that it needs to be clarified within the schools, because there are a lot of questions. There are no specific guidelines. I was told that there's no more social distancing requirements, so if that's true, then do we really need masks still? You know, so it's just in terms of guidance for teachers, I think it needs to be clarified, because it seems like it's different at different times. And personally, I would just like some clarification, because I'm not clear in terms of the city and the schools. So I guess that's where I stand with that. There's no clear, this is what you do. You see signs up in the schools that still say 6 feet apart, but we're being told by administration there's no more social distancing. So it's very confusing. So I would like to see there be more organized, streamlined, clarified communication about what is actually going on in terms of social distancing. How far apart? Can we be sharing crayons and markers and close contact?
Thank you. Andy, same questions. I'm just going to rephrase it again. Are you vaccinated, and how would you assess the city's response to COVID-19?
I am fully vaccinated, and I'm awaiting getting my booster shot. I strongly believe in the vaccine, and I believe that it is a definite way for us, along with masking, to keep our kids in the classroom and in front of teachers. I think it's important that we keep those kids in school. They've missed so much, and we need to make sure, and the way that it's been told to us, the science proves it, that masks do work, and they do protect these kids and the staff. We need to make sure that everyone stays safe. The distancing, so they think they haven't taken the sign down out of the door. Pretty much, it's your principal's responsibility to let everybody know what the protocol is on that. And I think regardless of whatever school of thought you go with, our goal should be safety, 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 safety for everyone concerned. Kids, especially kids, and our teachers, and who knows, in the next couple of weeks, there could be an FDA approval to get our kids vaccinated too. So I'm definitely for that as well. I lived through that whole time when kids weren't asked if they could take a polio vaccine. We just lined up outside the room and we got the shot. The needle was this big, I'm not kidding. It was at least that far. But it was just done. Why? For the public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Same thing, Dominik.
The question is in regard to the COVID vaccination. I work for the senator at Kennedy, and he is a big proponent, a big promoter of vaccination. And I understand the passion of the question. The maker of the question tried to keep everybody safe. But for me, everybody at Kennedy's office is vaccinated, and I remember the time when I went to an event with the senator around town, and the healthcare worker tried very hard to protect the privacy of the vaccine person. We're not allowed to know anything about that person, and I found that this question is doing the opposite of that. Doing the opposite of what the healthcare worker was trying to do. So I understand that the maker of this question wants to promote vaccination. I want to promote vaccination, but I'm not sure if becoming a school committee is required to prove that you are vaccinated. And if you want to, when the state and the city require that to be the requirement to become a school committee, I don't mind showing my vaccination record, but I just found that this question is a little bit unusual for becoming a school committee.
How would you assess the city's
And the
response
city,
to COVID?
and what the city has done, what the city has done, what the school has done is way beyond my expectation. They've done a very good job.
Okay. Thank you for that. The next question number 2, is from Ivy, and that is to Hilary. And the question is from the public. As you know, we open up questionings before the different sessions and debates. So this question is from the public. Ivy.
Thank you. Do you believe that racism is a public health crisis?
Thank you. Yes, I do believe racism is a public health crisis, and I did support the motion that passed in the school committee earlier this year. I believe that it is important that we recognize that racism exists within our systems, and this is not specific to Lowell, but it is it runs across our country. And some of the systems that are unfortunately in place, we need to really look closely and figure out how to dismantle them or make them more equitable so that we don't have disparate impact with certain groups. But specifically around racism as a public health crisis, we know that there are different outcomes for different students when we look at data related to dropout rates, data related to suspensions. Again, this is not specific to Lowell. We can look at other districts in the state and in the country, but we see it in our own data. And some of the ways that ultimately impacts health and well-being overall. Students that don't graduate from high school have a far less earning potential over their lifetime and often have do not live as long as others. And we see that disproportionately impacts certain ethnicities, and that is where I think we can clue right in and see the impact of racism. And again, I'm not pointing the finger to say that this is a specific person or teacher's actions or school's actions, but again, we need to look at the systems and identify how we can support students, meet them where they are, bring them in and make them feel welcomed and help them to be successful in their educational experience here in Lowell. That is our job, our responsibility, and what we're trying to do here as a school committee, and for me personally as a community member. I believe that's what we are we need to set out to do. We need to focus on that work because we are not equitably educating all of our community members. So thank you.
Thank you. Eileen, the same question.
I think that racism, regardless, has always been a part of our nation. It's always been a part of who we are, and it's unfortunate because people should look at people for who they are, not what their skin color is. Do I believe it's a health crisis? I believe that in certain situations, it can be a health crisis. I know Hilary, can I ask Hilary a question actually within this time? or
You
no?
can make the statement and then you can ask it.
Okay. So I believe that when we teach about the history of racism and our students are visual and they see the violence and they see the horrid things that have happened in the past, they will tend to repeat it because they're not so much understanding the theory of it. But our children today, I see beauty in them. Like, they don't see the difference in colors, and they don't see the difference in who each other are. They see that their friends are their friends. And I just think as people grow, people learn from their families and their generations, and it's embedded. Racism is embedded in our society, and it has been forever, unfortunately. But if we can have a growth mindset within all of us to really think of where we stand individually, I think that's the most important part, because you can find crises in all different situations, but if we find resolutions within ourselves to figure out the best way to approach a situation, or to take what someone we really love is telling us or thinks, and to make our own decisions, I think that is what can define all of us.
Thank you, Eileen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have the rest of the candidates respond to that question, and then I will be sure to go back to you to ask questions of Hilary. So, Mr. Descoteaux, I love saying your name now because I could say it right. Same question. Do you believe racism is a public health crisis?
I'll preface I do say, is there racism? Yes. Is it present in Lowell? Yes. I am not naive enough to say, oh no, we have no racists in the city. But to elevate it as in this city at least, as a health crisis, I think is pushing it a little too far. I think that we do an extremely good job in this city, in all of our schools, having been at the elementary level, having been at the high school level. I can tell you firsthand what the level of inclusion that we have in all our buildings. Absolutely, absolutely the best. And are there instances that happen? Sure. Again, I'm not that naive to say that certain things don't happen between kids, sometimes, and that can happen as well. No matter how much you try to keep your diversity intact, I think that still happens. But to say that we have a healthcare crisis here in Lowell, I can't agree with that. I don't. I think we have a great city. Can we do better? Sure, absolutely. But I think we're doing a really good job, and at least in my case, I never saw color, any color, in any of my students. They were my students. Black, brown, white, pink, green, I don't care what color they were. They were my students, all of them. I treated them all the same. So, I think the preponderance of our faculty and staff do the same. So I think we do a really, really good job going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Dominik, same question.
You will know that racism is a crisis if you are a victim, and you want to stop it right away. So yes, racism is a health crisis. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I wasn't expecting that, but yes. So I'm gonna go back to Eileen. You wanted to ask a question
I
to.
don't think Miss-
Oh, sorry. We
That's
had a
okay.
missing seat. Sorry,
Yes.
Susie. Yes, go
Thank
ahead.
you very much. Thank you for pointing that out. But
Yes.
yes, racism is a health crisis. When you see that healthcare professional and organization that has declared that racism is a health crisis, it's not just, we have to find a systematic way to approach what's been happening in not just our city, but in the United States itself, when it has been declared by federal and government. So with that said, is that, you know, again, for me, firsthand experience as someone who's been through it myself, and being that declared as a health crisis, it helps motivate. It's not just that, it's making sure that our city and our community hired enough staff and faculties in from every aspect of our job, especially in the city of Lowell, where we know that a lot of our families are from different minority backgrounds, and when we see that a lot of mistreatment in our community, you know, people of color, especially during COVID, people of, in the healthcare profession, where a lot of inequities happening in the during that time, where I feel like we really need to look into as to why, we need to dive deeply into why we have to declare it as a health crisis. And again, research have already explained, especially during this time where Stop Asian Hate, that's where we see a lot of the hatred coming out because of that, because of COVID. It has identified that, and you know what, it has been, you know, again, like school committee member Dominik Lay has, if you're a victim, you know exactly how it feels to be ridiculed. And you know, when you see that, you know, when our city support, well, not our city, but I mean, our research has declared that racism is a health crisis. It resonates how most majority of our people who has been here and has been victimized because of their skin color. Yes, I believe that racism is a health crisis because I experienced it firsthand as a refugee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And my apologies again for overlooking. Eileen, your question.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I'm sorry, Dominik and Susie, because I forgot about that period of time and what you guys experienced, and I never experienced racism myself, and so I can tell you that from looking from my perspective,
Did you have a question?
yes, I did have a question in terms of, Hilary, you were saying ethnicity related to deaths. I just was wondering if you could clarify that, like, how do, when you were saying that, like, there are certain increases in deaths related to ethnicities.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for the question. And so what I was saying is data shows that there is a disproportionate number of students of color or people of color. They have a higher risk of, for example, dropout rates from high school. And that also correlates, dropping out of high school correlates to a shorter lifespan due to many social outcomes, you know, less earning potential, less opportunities for employment. So that was what I was talking about there. And again, we see that there's a disproportionate number of people of color in those categories and with lower life expectancy. So, but I would like to, because I have an opportunity to respond to some of the things that were said here, you know, racism is not about not seeing color. Racism is not always overt. It is actually, you know, as overt and out with there as violence. Racism is often very subtle and embedded in systems. So, for example, our culturally and linguistically sustaining practices, the CLSP work that I think some of you may have heard about that we're working to do, and the framework that we're setting up within the Lowell Public Schools, this is about our students being able to see themselves in the material, being sure that they can see themselves in teaching and leadership roles, the teachers that are teaching them and leadership roles in the schools and in our community. For example, Eileen, we were speaking before about teaching Indigenous Peoples Day for the first time this year. This is a more accurate accounting of history. Many of our students know that because you are completely right that our students at this point in time are the most accepting and aware, I think, of any students that have come before. But the fact is that many of our educators are just now learning about this material themselves and now presenting it.
Thank you,
So,
Hilary.
thank you.
Yes, thank you. We are going to be moving on to the next question, and this question is toward Eileen. It's from Sydney, and the question again, this one is from the public as well.
Okay. The question is, how would you work with the school to help teachers and students to be more empowered to make changes needed within the schools?
Teachers need practical, applicable tools to work with our population. They need the appropriate skills, professional development, social skills training to meet kids where they're at right now, especially. I think our teachers are the key to our students. So when we empower our teachers with the right tools and the right curriculum for our student population and where they are currently with the devastating effects of COVID. I was saying earlier, from what I see is, students don't even know how to socialize or just be anymore. They're awkward. They're not in the right place. They're bumping into people or saying things, there are fights and there's misinterpretations because for so long students were at home and they weren't socializing and they weren't getting those practical skills. Therefore, I believe one way to help teachers, to help students, is to give them the tools such as social skills training, and go back a little, maybe even from the beginning. It needs to be embedded into a curriculum for our students because, like I said before, if they're not socially, emotionally okay, we can't teach them up here academically because they're not listening, they're not hearing anything. So we need to be realistic with our teachers, give them what they need, and with our students so that they have a shot. And that's what I believe that I could do because I'm on the front lines. I see it, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Ned.
At this stage, you have so many educators who, from training, possibly never got that kind of interacting training to help with these issues. And I think going forward, that should be something that's included in college courses where they're getting people ready for to become educators. But I think at this stage, I think that we should be offering our faculty, especially and also our staff, is professional development on easing all of these issues. Offering professional development, I think, is the solution on that one. And so I think that the early skills that kids have to learn, especially at the lower grades, and maybe K through 5, they're learning an awful lot of wonderful personal skills, interpersonal relationships with other students that they haven't been able to do sitting at home behind their computer screen. So I think we have to be able to reclaim all of that, and I think we need to listen to our teachers, and very carefully listen to the teachers and find out what it is they feel is their shortcomings. What do they need in terms of making this a better situation for their children? And going forward, that's what we have to do, is supply services to our kids in whichever way we have to, either through the special, teacher development and so forth. I think that's the only way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. To you, Dominik, same question.
Thank you. In order to achieve this goal, I think we need to have staff who believe in helping the students in achieving it, and staff need to understand where the students come from, and maybe understand a little bit further into their culture, what's the background of those students, and also we need to have school leaders who believe in it, the leaders who is ready to support the staff, to support the students, and furthermore, we need the city to support as well. We need the whole village. So that's how it begins. Thank you.
Thank you. Susie, same
Yes,
question. I'm actually gonna have Sidney repeat the question over again.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the question is, how would you work with the school to help teachers and students to be more empowered to make changes needed within the schools?
Thank you very much. For me, I believe in empowering families and our teachers to work together and to collaborate to make sure that when our teachers and our families work together, our kids become successful. And once that our kids become successful in their education life, they will thrive. And that's what I want to see. And we need to hire staff that reflects the community in our school as well. When I say that is when I'm hiring staff and faculty that reflects and the ideal fabric of our children and our student bodies that in our Lowell public school system at this moment. And not just that, for me, children also look for role models that look like them, and being able to empower them to feel like this person is my teacher, this person has been through some similar situation as my family. So this is what I want to see in our school system. And again, Lowell has been doing a tremendous job in the hiring process, but because in our faculty in this Lowell school system right now at this moment, it's the hiring process is they're hiring within their district, and we need to look beyond that. And in order for us to hire staff that reflect our community, is making sure that we look outside of the district. So that's the 2+1 ratio where we want to make sure that we hire teachers and staff that actually are not within the district, but also outside of the district, that are more they'll fit the criteria, and also it draws in the diverse teaching style or diverse teaching staff as well. So, but again, for me, it's just empowering our families to be able to work together with our teachers, and just getting family engaged, and the resources that I want to also emphasize on is that just having our parents have right at this moment as we are speaking, our families are more susceptible to answer text messages. So that's one of the ways to reach out to our families.
Thank you,
very
Susie.
much.
Hilary.
Thank you. So I believe that our students and staff must feel safe and welcome. I think it would be difficult to feel empowered to speak and make change unless you feel like you belong in the classroom and in the school. So I think our teachers do have a responsibility to our students to make them feel empowered, to learn how to advocate for themselves, to advocate for each other, to call out when they see something that is wrong or not okay, and to use their voice. I believe that we should be incorporating these opportunities into our curriculum. I think exposing students at certain levels to city government, for example, is a good way to learn about how change is made, how information is brought forward, and how we can work as a community to provide for our community members. I also want to point out that school site councils is a group that we want our families, our teachers, staff, to have voice along with our principals. That's where we have been moving money down to the school level and really empowering our these communities, our schools, to be making decisions about how to spend that money. And we are giving families and teachers and the principal voice around what to do with those dollars that can be used for supplies, dollars that can be used for hiring of different staff. It is important that we empower our families and our students and our teachers to know that they have an opportunity to have a voice, to make change. We want to make those people feel welcome, though, and meet them where they are so that they can be brought to the table or invited and feel welcome at that table. So thank you.
Thank you. The next question is question number 4, and this question is to Andy Descoteaux, and again, from the public. I mean, our public love giving us questions. And Ivy, your question, please.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Andy Descoteaux from the public. How should Pollard Memorial Library interact with Lowell Public Schools? And how should Lowell Public Schools interact with the library?
Back several years ago, it was extremely difficult for the school committee at that time to cut the library aids and make any kinds of cuts at our libraries. Our society desperately needs its libraries, and whether it's the public library or the school library, we really do need to have those in place in all our buildings so that books are made available to our students and staff, for that matter. But we need to try to put back what we took away when we were really in desperate physical needs. And so I really would like to see that redressed because I forget what the quote is exactly, but a society is really measured by its libraries. If you don't have a decent library, it's really indicating that your society is not doing well. So I think we need to be much more conscious of that issue and return funding to our libraries. Every building, not just select few or even just the public library. I think it's got to be all buildings right across the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Dominik?
Hi. I think library is a hidden gem for the students. They have the resources, they have the space that every student should take advantage of. And I suppose the school and the librarians, I mean, they're so close working together in terms of helping the students. Unfortunately, I don't think we have that much interaction in the past in terms of looking for programs, cooperation, and funding. So I hope that if we want to take advantage of the library and the library resource to help the students, we should create a program and definitely funding to make it happen. And I think the students will benefit from it greatly. So that's, I think, how we should do it.
Thank you. Susie, you're up next.
Thank you.
Same
so much.
question.
Yes. Our library is underutilized. Again, like Mr. Dominik just mentioned that the library is growing up is the best resource, especially from my background growing up, where we don't have a lot of books or anything like the encyclopedia back then. Now we have Google Translate, we have Google, you Google everything. But library is just the best resources for our families and to build bridges between Lowell Public, the school system, and the library. But speaking from the linguistic part of our, from my perspective, is that we don't know, do we have enough resources such as books that are, that relates to some of the students, again, for me it's speaking from where do we have enough books that can relate to our students' body in our city, in our community. So what I'm trying to say is that building that bridge between the curriculum in our school system is making sure that our library have enough books that are, that reflects the people of color or our families from different backgrounds. And I don't know if that's enough in our library, but speaking of the stuff that we teach in our classroom, we want to have authors and illustrators that are from a different background versus then the dominant bodies, so that's what I want to see, is that making sure that we have enough resource, enough books that can actually reflect our community as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hilary, same question.
Thank you. I agree with Susie that our Pollard Library is an underutilized resource within our community and certainly underutilized by Lowell Public Schools. I believe that we have an opportunity to partner with the library and the Lowell Public Schools. We should be having more field trips for our students to go and learn more about the library, learn how to use it, feel comfortable within the library. I know there is a point, I'm trying to remember what year I attended a field trip. I think it was maybe 5th or 6th grade, where the students from my daughter's school all went downtown. Actually, it was probably elementary school. I think it was 4th grade. And we did a lot of touring around of downtown, and the library was one of the stops. But I believe that we should incorporate those trips in for different ages, because I think there's different values for younger versus older students. And when I was growing up, the town I lived in, that was a place to go after school. The library was filled with students after school. So I believe we have a lot of opportunity there. I also happened to go to yoga with a board member, and she mentioned to me the other day that the board members, they've been talking about how we should be working better together. And so she had said, I would love to sit down and talk with you about what the library offers and how we can perhaps work together. So I believe this is a mission of theirs currently, and I think that's an important mission. And one other thing that I've learned recently about the library, so Wayne Janess, who is running for city council seat in District 4 downtown, he mentioned that as he was going through city websites, he actually went to the library website to try to get a library card, but in Spanish, as a way to kind of see if this was possible. And as he was going through it, he actually realized that it right now is currently only set up for English speakers or English language. So it was something interesting, and I know the library is working to do more to be inclusive.
Thank you, Hilary. Last but not least, Eileen.
I definitely agree that the Pollard Memorial Library is underutilized and underused. The reality is most of our kids and their families aren't going to be able to go there after school due to a variety of reasons. So we do need to partner and work with the Pollard Memorial Library. I think a way Lowell can work with the library is to really review budgets and funds and see if we can get a mobile resource so that we can really get to different schools with the books. And in terms of Lowell Public School also, we have so many books from so many different curriculums over the years that are stashed somewhere. An inventory desperately needs to be taken, and I am sure there is a book for every reason, season, and purpose that can be applicable in a mobile library, so that Lowell and the library can work together to bring these resources to kids in the schools, because it's a lost art. I mean, I remember back in the Robinson we had a library time, it was, I remember her name, Mrs. Foley. He was our librarian. And we would go and she would teach us the Dewey Decimal System. But that is something that kids don't have anymore. And it's those simple basics that we need to reinstill in our students, to realize that there is a reason for a library. Kids don't understand anymore there's a reason for anything. They just take it for what it is at face value. We need to teach them why we have certain institutions in place in our city and why it is important for them to learn the system of how it's used. And whether it's field trips, whether it's a mobile unit or two, there has to be funds within the budget to make this a priority because it is basics. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know Dominik had his hand raised. I just want to, and also Hilary as well, remind you that please keep it brief. Under a minute would be ideal,
Sure, I
but
will.
yes, thank you.
So I agree with Hilary when she said about field trip. Reminds me of all the good time I had when I took a trip to the library. But so I want to add to that is that the computer, I think the computer at the library would be useful, especially for to connect to the school work. And also I feel that if we could have the school material from the school also accessible in the library, every school books, every textbook that you have in the school, and we have the same one, same copy in the library, I think that would be very helpful, and good cooperation between the two. So,
Thank you. Hilary, did you wanted to
Sure.
say something
Yeah.
in response? Yes.
Thank you. I was actually thinking the same thing as Eileen, that I think it's a great idea, Eileen. The mobile library is a great way to connect our community, those that maybe are farther from the downtown or don't attend school in downtown, as a way to connect and get books out to neighborhoods, as opposed to expecting that people are going to come downtown. So I think that's a fabulous idea, and something that I would hope that the library is considering. So thanks.
Thank you. So we've come to the last question.
hold on.
Oh,
Andy has.
Andy, you also?
Yeah,
Yes.
just one more thing.
Yes, go ahead.
In reference to the mobile library, the Pollard Library had a mobile unit for a very, very long time, and again, budget cuts and so being what they were, I'm assuming it got eliminated. I haven't seen that van in a very long time. So I think it's a great idea also, and I think we need to really focus on making sure that our individual libraries that each school has is completely supplied with what is necessary, because it changes so radically and so quickly. There's got to be a constant changeover of whatever they put in there for books for our kids, and again, I think that's important very much.
Thank you. Apologies, I didn't see you there. My eyes are it's showing my age, basically.
My age too.
Yes. Last question. This question is from Sidney, and it's to Dominik. Sidney, your question.
Mr. Lay, the question is, what measure will you take to improve the upkeep and maintenance of school facilities?
Oh man, we have been, from what I heard, we used to have like an inch, 2 inches thick of what to do to our schools. But recently we have an ESSER fund, and we will spend about $12 million, I believe, in order to improve the facility in our schools. We need a lot more than that, and so how much more do we need? Oh man, I think we need a lot, and we need the city to make a commitment to fix it, because our school is in need of repair, and our students we're not doing them a good favor by putting them in a building that needs repair. Toilets, bathrooms, windows, roof, floors, everything needs a repair. So I don't know how we can find that money, but I hope the city, maybe the state could help us, but definitely we need more funding. So, thank you.
Thank you. Susie, you're up next. Yes.
Thank you. I believe that our main focus right now is our educational system, because there are the ESSER fund that I heard recently, and also the CARES Act and DESI funding and Student Opportunity Act funding as well. And there are other fundings that to help maintain our maintaining our buildings and infrastructure and so on and so forth. But for me, being an educator, my main focus is making sure that, our education system being set. And now it's not time for money to go towards administration or other salaries that, that's not our main focus. But because of COVID, the pandemic, it has robbed our children from valuable learning time. So money from the CARES Act or DESI money and Student Opportunity Act funds must be directed to programs and services that directly help our students, families, and teachers in the classroom. Maintaining our building, that's not my wheelhouse, but if and when elected as a school committee, I would definitely do my homework and my research and dive deeply into what is it that we need to help maintain our buildings as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Hilary, same question.
Thank you. So the pandemic definitely forced those responsible for building maintenance at the city and also the school department to work closely together. And it was on a number of things, but it all related to safety as well as how do we get our students back into schools. So things from building repairs to windows that open or windows that are broken, doors that are broken, HVAC systems, etc. So what I would expect and hope is that this partnership continues, because I do believe we made great progress over the last year and a half on the identification and prioritization of the work that needs to be done. Deferred maintenance is something that unfortunately we can see across the city in its buildings. And this is, again, not unique to Lowell. This is a problem of many cities and places across the country. But it is important that we stay on top of this work, that we have ways and channels for our schools, principals, teachers to report information and needs, and that those things really do roll up to a larger list, so that we can work and assess the needs as well as prioritize the work that has to be done. We also need to make sure that we hold the city accountable, because while we are the school committee, the facilities actually are city buildings and must be maintained by the city. There are a lot of, unfortunately, some rules in place. Even trying to paint in a building is the responsibility of the city, and there are roadblocks that have been put up if, for say, a group of volunteers wanted to go and paint to create even a more welcoming environment. So I think that we need to be sure that we're holding the city accountable for doing the work that needs to get done. I think we should also see if there's opportunities and ways for school communities to empower them to do a bit more work. Again, not going against any union contract that is responsible for this work, or union group at the city that's responsible, but really working together as partners to make our schools safe and welcoming. Thank you.
Eileen.
Hi, yeah, I'm feisty about this one. So I think first off, we need to really clarify who's responsible for doing what. As Hilary was saying, painting is a city thing. Who's responsible, school committee or city? Because that needs to be clarified, because there's too much in between there. We have a guide. It was done in 2014, the Collins Report, that needs to be assessed. It needs to be reviewed. It needs to be checked off. And our buildings that hold our children and our teachers, our staff, they're not healthy buildings. So we need to prove that work is done. I hear of people getting overtime for this and that. If anyone's getting overtime, there needs to be some type of a work ticket produced to show that work was completed on a specific issue in a building. And I'm sure there's plenty more than what has arisen in the Collins Report since 2014. So start at the 2014 Collins Report. Assure everything is done there. If it is, then move on to what has arisen. But I'm pretty sure there's plenty of issues from that Collins Report that have not been addressed. And it doesn't make sense, deferred maintenance. I don't understand that, because these are It is the health of our buildings. It's the health of our students. It's the success. If we want our students to be successful, we have to provide them with the appropriate, healthy environment, and not just some slapped together building that, you know, 4 walls are up and there's not a problem today and we don't have to rush until there's, you know, a basement is completely flooded. You know, we need a proactive system in regards to this and not a reactive system. Thank you.
Thank you. That was perfect. 2 minutes. Andy, you have the last question and also the last response to the question.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right up front, our buildings are old. Even our youngest building is 25 years old. And I want to remind people that even our new schools, ranging in age from 25 to 35 to 40 or so, were built using the lowest bidder for building those things. So you can only imagine the quality of what was put into those buildings in a lot of cases. So expecting them to last beyond, with that kind of quality, beyond 5 years is ludicrous. We need to ensure primarily that our HVAC issues are absolutely attended to, because that affects our faculty and our children directly, right there in the school buildings and in the classroom. We need to make sure that the ventilation is good. That means our windows have been attended to, that there are screens that they can open windows and so forth, that the heat is controllable, and part of that 12 million, it was actually what, 13 million I think it was, that's been, that the school department wants to put toward our facilities. And that is dealing with mostly controls for HVAC in all of our buildings. Because right now, it's a hit or miss control of some of the heating and cooling issues in some of our buildings. So we need to make sure that that happens. Our city has recently done a great job to remedy some of these issues. And I do thank them for that. It's been a long time coming, and we are very appreciative of that. And to clarify the issue, the city owns all of the school buildings. The maintenance of those buildings is the city's responsibility.
Thank you,
And,
Andy.
and when we are being denied as a person who works in the building, that I couldn't bring a screwdriver in to put a plate on a light switch that I know exactly how to put that plate on, but I can't touch it.
Yep.
I can't bring a paintbrush in with a little can of paint to touch up that little spot on that door.
Thank you, Andy.
Can't do it.
So we do have a response to the statement before, and that's from Hilary. I will give everybody a chance to do as well. We do have some time, so yes.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say that the deferred maintenance is expensive, and we are currently paying the price for this. However, I would like to acknowledge the work of our current city manager and team, that they have diligently gone ahead and applied for MSBA funding, so that is state money, to make significant repairs at many of our schools, significant and expensive repairs. So things like boilers, HVAC systems that require replacement. There is an application process, and we have consistently over the last few years had a list of applications in for many of our schools based on need. And we are consistently getting money from the state that needs to be met with some city money, so we are providing some city money for some of these major repairs, but that makes a big difference. And our high school project is a good example of that. That's a lot of MSBA money coming into the city to develop and build the new high school downtown. So I just want to acknowledge those that have been supportive of this work and continue to help us get there, but that partnership really does need to continue. That needs to be the bare minimum. We need to continue to work hard for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. I'm going to open up to the rest of the candidates if they want to respond to the candidate before. So Susie, did you wanted to say something?
Sure. I mean,
Yes.
I do agree. I piggyback off of what you have to say about holding the person who's accountable for the infrastructure or the maintenance of our buildings. And I have questions. I'm not 100% sure, but how many maintenance staff do we have in our buildings that to actually maintain our schools? Because we do need maintenance who are there. There because of budget cuts and all that. We need to make sure that we maintain our maintenance staff to ensure that our buildings are readily, cleaned or in adequate condition because of the whole budget cut that that's what I've noticed. And also it's because, hiring enough staffing to make sure that our the HVAC, that's what I've noticed last year before the end of the school year, is like our Lowell Public School were cut short. The kids had to be let out early because of lack of HVAC in our school buildings. And it's not all the schools, but because of a few buildings that do not have that resources, we have to let our kids out early, and that takes the time away from our students learning. And again, this is right after when the kids are back in person, and we want to make sure that that are being taken care of. And who is it that we need to hold accountable for? And from Mr. Descoteaux just mentioned that the city is accountable, and we need to make sure that our buildings are ready for our students. And if we want our kids to succeed in their education, our buildings need to hire hire enough staff to maintain our buildings. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Eileen?
I guess I do want to piggyback off of all of this too. Last year when you bring up we had to let the kids out early because of the HVAC, my son goes to the McAuliffe every day. We would pick him up. Those teachers looked like they were literally going to pass out. They were so hot. Got to the point my son was refusing to go to school and he has asthma. So I let him stay home, and I'm like, what am I doing letting him stay home? Because it was so hot. I said, I wonder if I can get a standalone air conditioner, right? So I asked the principal if I could get one for his teacher's classroom, and he said, I don't want you to spend the money, but that's your choice. And it made a difference. I did. I went out and I spent a good amount of money, but it made a difference. But I'm one person who can think of that solution. There's really smart people in this city who can think of a solution to make things work. When I was in my classroom in the beginning of the year, it was 85 degrees. It took me to go get yet another standalone air conditioner in that room, and weeks of keeping it so that room would actually get down to 75 degrees. And it's just, things aren't being done, and then there's people that are just making sure things get done, and there's too much of that going on in the city, and people are getting tired.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Dominik, did you wanted to say something as well, or?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight, and I'd like to say thank you to our panelists as well for taking their time out on a Friday night to join us. I want to make sure that I'm saying Ivy's last name correctly. It's Ivy Nugugi. Gogi. Oh my goodness, I'm so off. Yes. And Sidney Liang for being here tonight. I say this before, and I'm going to say this again to all of the candidates. You have my respect for incumbent. Thank you for your service, and for challengers. It's really brave, and it takes guts and courage to put your name on the ballot. So for that, I appreciate all of you. To our viewers, I hope you are really enjoying our debate so far, and that you are making really informed decisions and getting really informative informations from our candidates. This is the 5th of 6 sessions that we have, and the next debate that's coming up, the next one is next Thursday, October 14 at 6 o'clock, and we will be having City Council District 5, District 6, and District 7. And I hope everybody will join us, and have a wonderful weekend, a long weekend. And for LTC, we are closed on Monday for Indigenous People Day. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Good night.